I teach high school social studies, so I want everyone to try a little thought exercise with me. Close your eyes. Good. Now imagine that you're back in your least favorite class. I know, right? Imagine the teacher, the room, your classmates, and think back to just exactly why you didn't like that class in the first place. Was it because you just didn't understand the material? Was it because you felt helpless? Frustrated even? All right, open your eyes now. Hopefully that didn't hurt anyone. When I see my students struggle, I tell them to focus on their daily habits and mindsets that will set them up for success down the line. If you have a low grade, maybe turn in an assignment. If you don't understand something, ask a question. It's really okay. But not doing the daily work and banking on scoring high on the exams is a losing strategy. I know. And in this way, students are a lot like our cities. There are always politicians out there arguing for a mega project to solve our city's problems. These big projects often come with, I would say, very high costs. All of us have communities that we might see our big project arrive. Now, politicians, when they suggest big projects, they don't necessarily focus on the small things that we can do to improve our communities. I'll give a couple examples. In 2017, the manufacturer Foxconn struck a multi-billion-dollar deal with the state of Wisconsin for a planned facility that would hopefully have over 14,000 workers. By 2021, this project flopped, and they only had 1,400 workers. That subsidy went down to about $8 million. When we talk about mega projects, I also want you to think about any sports stadium ever. The most recent example that I can think of is the Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. I just saw a proposal that would have $100 million in public subsidies for a stadium. Now, proponents of these mega projects would always tout the economic benefits, but almost always the outcomes are not necessarily lining up with the projections, and the citizens are left with the bag. When we talk about this type of stuff, I really want us to focus on why do these big projects tend to fail, not build a sense of community? They don't get your average citizen invested in the process. They don't build the social ties needed to build stronger communities. And I would say the best way to make your community stronger is through constant incremental improvements done by the residents. As the president of the Bloomington Revitalists, part of the National Strong Towns movement, I want TEDxNormal's next big idea to be thinking small. When I say thinking small, I don't mean small-minded or insignificant. I mean fixing a problem right where you see it. Now, some people might say, well, isn't that what the government is for? And I would say, there's nothing more empowering than putting the gloves on yourself and doing something tangible to improve your community. And in fact, actively doing something, as opposed to sitting down and complaining and waiting for someone else to do it, it gets results a lot faster. In fact, communities have been built like this for generations, places that we all love to visit. And in fact, I've visited San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Utrecht in the Netherlands. They all have similar qualities. You walk down a street in any of these communities, you notice that they have been built incrementally over time. You walk down an alleyway and you notice that these buildings are the total sums of successes and failures and adaptations over time. It creates a sense of place and identity, a place that people care about. No wonder why millions of tourists visit these places a year. That is also the reason why I love downtown Bloomington, Illinois. If you ever look up along Main Street, right, I want you to notice the fingerprints left behind by the generations before us, by people who actively cared about their places, people who truly thought, what is the next smallest thing that I can do to make my community better? These buildings along Main Street, if you go back in time, photos from the 1800s, they started off as shacks. But over time, we saw improvements being made. Community is lively, a place that people care about and feel home, a sense of belonging. Now, how did we go from this to that? Right? Rejecting the time-tested, bottom-up solutions for whatever this is. Ever since World War II, our communities have been planned differently than the generations before. Big institutional investors or governments are going to plan out subdivisions to their complete state, not allowing individuals, through arcane rules and such, to adapt their homes or their places over time, to grow into them. This creates a sense of isolation and learned helplessness. That's where we hear all the complaints from. It's a cycle of cynicism that, in my mind, can be fixed by working with your neighbors to make small improvements where you see them, by thinking small. In Strong Towns, we call this idea the Strong Towns method. Step 1, humbly observe where people in the community struggle. Step 2, ask the question, what is the next smallest thing that we can do right now to address that struggle? Step 3, pretty straightforward. Do it. Do the thing. Do it now. It's a lot easier said than done, but I think that's important. Step 4, repeat. Over and over and over and over again. It might not sound like a lot, but if you think about it, the total sum of maybe 100 or 200 or 300 residents all acting in the best interest for their community, you start to see big changes. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day. Now, I want to show you how the Strong Towns method can be applied in various situations. Probably things that we have noticed, problems facing our own communities. First, let's talk about the housing crisis. In TEDxNormal, there is at least 4,500 homes that is a housing unit shortage. Projections say or suggest within 10 years that might grow up to 16,000 housing units. Now compare that to the nation, 4.9 million units needed. I would say that is truly, in fact, a crisis. And when regular people encounter a crisis, they tend to do something drastic. At the age of 26, I found myself stunned and divorced and sitting alone in a single-family home that I could no longer afford. And what do you think I did the very next day? This, I would say, is a big project, a mega project. It made me feel good, but did it help me with my financial situation? No, it made it worse. This is actually a picture of me selling the motorcycle because I could not afford it. But then I said to myself, okay, what is the next smallest thing that I could do to improve my situation? After living in town for such a long time, I realized most landlords leased out their units at 1-year increments, or they tailor their units for the school year. There's a group of people that tend to fall through the cracks there. Young professionals, interns, who are here for not necessarily a long enough time, or they don't necessarily know how long they will be here. So I decided, well, I'm going to write an ad on Craigslist. for the 2 empty rooms on my second floor. That's a big step right there. But actually, thinking small, writing 500 words. Over the past 4 years, I have housed 8 people. Now, these roommates help me out financially, yes, but they also help me emotionally. On the left is my roommate Bailey, one of my first. This is the day that my divorce was finalized. Imagine going to Jewel and asking the guy, hey, could you write this on this cake for me? On the right is my entire house hiding in the basement from a tornado. Right? In fact, Vicky's first time experiencing Midwestern weather since she came here from Hong Kong. We're not just roommates. We cooked with each other. We went to concerts together. We communed together. And I want you to think, if even a small percentage of homeowners either rented out a room in their house, a spare room, or even built an additional unit on their property, this would truly democratize the response to the housing crisis. And I want to talk about how we can think small in community and neighborhood development. My organization, we pick up trash every month. And our very first trash pickup, downtown Bloomington, it was 40 degrees and raining. And yet we still had 30 people show up. Now, some people might argue, well, picking up trash is beneath me. And I would counter with this. You are actively engaging with your community around you. You are seeing problems where they are. When we went around the main drag, we noticed so many cigarette butts. You know, the next smallest thing, put in a public ashtray. Or you walk past a blank wall on a building downtown. You say, oh, that would be a perfect spot for a mural. You need to interact actively with your community to notice these things. I'm also a member of my local neighborhood association. And to create a sense of common identity and history, we decided to take a look at the history of our old homes. As a committee, we got together, a group of neighbors, and we did research on the people who lived in our homes, the stories that they had, when these houses were built, the architectural details. And we went to the History Museum. We didn't wait for some outside grant to do this. We did this ourselves. And over the past several years, we have put in over 40 signs. It doesn't seem like a lot, but these are literal signs of revitalization in a community. Signs that people care about their place and they're willing to invest in the history of their house. And also, people who have these signs tend to take better care of their front yards. They're also quite contagious. After the most recent bout of signs that we put in, 10 of our neighbors came up to us. They're like, how could we join you? How could we do this for our own house? I'm also a member of our local community land trust. One of our programs is that we help people who are elderly or disabled do DIY projects that they otherwise could not do by themselves. This woman's front porch stairs were completely rotted through. So I got a group of people together, and we spent a couple hours and $100 worth of materials, and we rebuilt her front porch stairs. To us, that was not a heavy lift. That was thinking small. But to her, that restored a sense of pride and safety and security in the place that she lives. I also want to talk about how thinking small can impact economic development. Our local VFW post has a kitchen inside it. Some of you are probably aware of this. In order to make some more money on the side, this organization started to rent out this kitchen to startups, small restaurants who are certainly not big enough to start their own brick-and-mortar shop right then and there. This is lowering the bar for economic participation. The owner of Pop-Up Chicken right here, he told me, we were able to test our menu, grow our brand, get a customer base, and prove ourselves so we can actually grow to now having 2 brick-and-mortar locations. Okay? They're now featured on America's Best Restaurants. My favorite bar downtown, Poor Brothers, has a similar problem. They have no kitchen. So the owner asked himself, what is the smallest thing that I could do to make the experience better for my patrons? So they allowed the people to bring in their own food. So people started having potlucks at the bar. People started bringing pizza in for trivia nights, and so on and so forth. It got to a point where so many people started showing up at Poor Brothers, it could sustain a food truck. The owners then started working with upstart food trucks across the community and scheduling out times and places for them to be. This is resiliency right here. If one food truck doesn't work out, get another one, right? Work with someone else. Pop-ups and places like these make our economy resilient and unique, and in my opinion, certainly a lot better than a lot of chain restaurants. Now, I want you to think back to at the beginning when you're in that class that you detest. Are you going to think small? Study every day, maybe 10 minutes? Or you do something drastic, like cramming the entire textbook the night before? At the end of the semester, I congratulate my students who are able to adapt, who are able to think small. But I also want you to realize you can think small too. Go back into your community and really, really see, interact with it intentionally. What is wrong? Pick up some trash. Plant some flowers. Work with your neighbors to do something constructive. And most importantly, work together to build a strong town. Think small. Thank you.